Again, folks, you would like to go ahead and put your names into the chat, your location, your experience level with canvassing, and why you're interested in volunteering today. So I'll give you all a little bit of background on myself and just how I initially got engaged with everything. So, I've been involved with politics and activism for quite some time since I was a little kid. My mother used to take me out to a lot of different protests and other things. But I would say my own awakening to protest, to activism came around the time that a state senator from here in Illinois was running for president. He spoke about bringing progressive change to our country. I was very dissatisfied with the direction of our country at that time. We were involved in a lot of wars. The country wasn't moving in the right direction. The economy wasn't moving in the right direction. And I thought I needed to do anything I can to help this man to get elected. So I volunteered on his campaign. I was summer organizer on his campaign. My role was to build neighborhood teams in northwest suburban Chicago. We were able to build a lot of those teams. A lot of them are still active to this day in WSOFA. I know there are many members on from that group. They were one of the groups that we built up a lot of the volunteers, the initial leadership team for. I went down to Florida, was an organizer there for the Obama campaign, where I worked on campuses as well as in some rural areas. I came back to Illinois and I worked on a number of other political campaigns, from presidential to local city races to statewide gubernatorial races and races all across the country. Now I'm a data consultant. I supply data as well as consulting for various campaigns and not-for-profit groups. So a lot of the data that you'd utilize in VAN and other things, I have helped to put some of that data there for various scores and other things. So we'll go ahead and get into the presentation now, just about the Neighborhood Canvas Leader program. I'll talk to you a bit about what we're going to cover today. So there are a couple of things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about who we're talking to and why it matters. We're going to talk about what our canvassing targets are. We're going to talk about the different types of canvassing. We're going to talk about how to build quality conversations. We're going to go through door-to-door canvassing best practices. We also are going to do, we're probably not going to do that role play. There quite too many of us on the call today. If this was a smaller group, we do the role play, but there are about 70 to 100 of us that are going to be on this call, so we'll skip that at least for this one. But in some of the future where we have smaller groups, we'll do some of that role play. We're also going to go through Minivan and how to utilize Minivan, which is the program that we utilize for our canvassing efforts, and then we're going to do some key takeaways. So again, thank you for all being here. Let's go ahead and win in 2026. We're going to do that by making sure that we reach out to as many voters as possible, all across Illinois and beyond. So who are we talking to exactly? And for many of you, I know some of you have been to previous Canvas trainings with me in the past. This is going to seem very familiar to many of you. I see a lot of familiar faces, but there are some differences here with what we're doing with this program as well. So there are a few very key targets that we're focusing on. So I would say that our primary targets, or target number one, are going to be the MAGA Republican districts in Illinois. So that is the 12th Congressional District, the 15th Congressional District, and the 16th Congressional District. And you all can see the color coding that I have on those particular districts. You can determine what you will from those color codings of those districts. But I would say those are the primary targets. So we want to get as many people as possible canvassing into these districts across the state. These are the districts that are voting along with Trump 100% of the time on various bills and various pieces of legislation. So we want to make sure that we're making constituents aware of their elected officials' positions within those districts. We also know that 2026 is going to be a critical year where we need to pick up as many House seats as possible. So we want to apply as much pressure as we can into these districts where people don't reflect our values. And those are our three most key opportunities across the state. There will be opportunities in other states as well, but we want to start early here in Illinois. The more we make voters aware of their elected officials' positions here in Illinois, the easier it will be in the upcoming election and the more people that we can send safely into some of the battleground states while keeping our own state safe. We also have a lot of key races that are going to be happening here in Illinois as well. And we want to make sure that we've built up as much support early on as possible so that we don't have to do a lot of the work as we get towards the tail end. We're just focusing on getting out the vote and not necessarily persuasion or getting people enthusiastic about going out to vote. We also want to look at, and this is a secondary target, which is also very important. We saw a number of areas that have historically voted for individuals that reflect our values. We saw a shift towards Trump in some of those districts. So these are districts that should not have shifted towards Trump, where we saw perhaps large minority populations, large populations of women and others who have been greatly affected by President Trump's policies. We want to go into those specific areas and we want to talk with voters about specifically what issues they're concerned with. We want to find out what issues they're concerned with now. We want to find out a bit about what happened, and we want to make sure that we have those conversations with them so that they understand that Republicans, Trump Republicans, and Trump himself are putting a lot of these policies in place that will affect them greatly. As you all know, the big ugly bill, the big beautiful bill as they called it, a lot of the cuts won't take effect until after the midterms. So we want to make people aware of those particular cuts as well as other votes that some of these MAGA Republicans have taken. Also, your own precinct or your own area. It may not be your own precinct, but you may be interested in canvassing your own area. So you may be interested in canvassing your own community, your own precinct, an area that is close to you. You may be interested in building those relationships in that area. We can also get you set up to do that. That's a little closer to home if you don't live near any of these districts and don't always want to travel to those particular districts. So that's something that we can set you up to do as well. I've mentioned the neighboring battleground states and those districts. We know that there are going to be some Senate races that we are going to have to play heavily in. I know we're going to have to go into Michigan, as there's going to be a key Senate race there that is listed as a toss-up according to the Cook report right now. So we know that we are going to need to send canvassers into Michigan. We also are probably going to have to send canvassers into Wisconsin just for some of the congressional races there as well. We know that 2026 and the democracy as a whole is going to hinge on what we do in the upcoming elections. So we're going to look at how we can send as many people into these neighboring states as possible, while also making sure that we protect what we have here at home as well. And obviously, we're going to be talking with voters that support our values and voters that are on the fence overall. Those are going to be our primary targets. So it's going to be voters that reflect our values, making sure that they go out to vote, making sure that we get them engaged in the process, that we get them volunteering, and also those voters that are on the fence. So we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. I do see Jackie has her hand up. We're going to get through most of the presentation first, so please go ahead and put your question into the chat. We will have plenty of time for it, and we'll call on you as soon as we get to that part of the presentation. I do want to keep us on schedule to make sure that we are at least completed with all of the presentation before we get to 8 o'clock, but we will have plenty of time. So we are 478 days until the midterms. What we're doing right now is all a part of the grand scheme of everything that we're doing. So we're out, we're doing protests. You all have seen those earned media events where we're getting lots of media attention. People are paying attention. You've seen the No Kings. You've seen the hands-off events. You've seen the other events. Those are fantastic. They're getting a lot of attention. We're reaching a lot of people with those. But they don't reach all people. There are lots of people who aren't paying attention. And for those particular people, we have to go to them where we are. We've been phone banking into a lot of these districts and into various parts of the state. That's a great way to reach them, but not everyone picks up their phone. Not everyone listens to their message. I would say the best way overall for us to reach voters and constituents within these districts and across the state is to actually go and to knock on their door and to have that conversation with them. The data proves it overwhelmingly. Everything else is secondary to that. We're going to have canvassing, which is the best way for us to reach voters. Also, underneath that is going to be that relational organizing when we're having meetings with people, town halls, other things. Then we're going to have phone banking, direct mail, these protest events and postcards and other things underneath that. So we know that canvassing is the most effective way to move people through the buckets, which we'll talk about momentarily, and to persuade them to vote in the upcoming election, and also to shift their opinion on specific issues. A lot of people don't realize how the policies are affecting them in their day-to-day lives. That's exactly what we're going to do with this particular program. So, just as I mentioned, we can't reach the millions of voters and get our messaging out without all of you. That's where you're going to come in. That's where you will invite other people to join us as well across the state. We're looking to build this as large as possible across the state so that our state is as safe as possible as we get towards the election, and then we can focus some of our energy into some of the battleground states that are surrounding us as well. So we want to think about how many doors can we knock, how many voters can we talk to, how many volunteers can we recruit? A large part of what we're going to be doing on the doors are recruiting people to join us. So those are people coming out either to protests that we have going on, people coming out to town halls that we have going on. There are going to be a lot of town halls. There are going to be a lot of empty chair town halls. There are going to be town halls where we have some of our members of Congress there. We want to invite people out to all of these events. And we want to think about what we're going to do to save democracy, because all of this is about us saving democracy. We know that this is the most effective approach, talking to people where they are, knocking on their door and getting them to realize their elected officials' positions on the issues, how they're affecting them, and that we would like them to vote in the upcoming election. So there are different types of canvassing, and I'm going to go through just what these different types of canvassing are and how they are all different. And we're actually going to have trainings on the different types of canvassing as well. Remember, this is the introduction where we're just going to do a broad overview of the types of canvassing and what we're doing, but there are lots of different types of canvassing. So one of the types of canvassing that many of you may be familiar with who have canvassed frequently are candidate ID or persuasion canvassing. And that's essentially where you're going out and you're talking with voters about a particular issue and how a candidate has either has a position on that particular issue, and how voting for them may change that particular issue. That's the persuasive canvassing. These are people that are typically on the fence. You're talking with them about the issues. You're finding out what issue they're concerned with, very similar to what we're going to be doing, and then you're persuading them based on that particular issue and your candidate's position. You're also IDing with these, and typically campaigns start to ID early on. Typically campaigns that have the most IDs and the IDs that are their pluses tend to win in these elections, and they do that either through canvassing or on the phones. That's the most common type of canvassing that you'll see, specifically if you're working for a candidate. There's also the get out the vote canvassing, which relates directly to those IDs. So typically the GOTV universe is made up of all of their pluses, their positive IDs tend to go into that GOTV universe. Also people that tend to vote for those particular candidates or those candidates' values regularly, those will be in the GOTV universe. And typically you'll see that happens as you get closer to the vote by mail, the early vote, and the election day itself is when those GOTV canvasses are going on, and the persuasive and IDs are going on typically before that. There's also petition canvassing. I know that there are many people that are going to be interested in petition canvassing. In fact, here in Illinois, petition canvassing is going to start on August the 5th, and it ends on November the 3rd. So that's where candidates have to go out and collect a certain number of signatures to get on the ballot. It's a very fun, I love petition canvassing. You get to go out and talk with people. People are typically very, very friendly with it. You don't necessarily always have to canvass with it. You can do some high traffic areas, you can do drive-through canvasses, you can do a number of different things to collect those petition signatures. I know there are a number of people who are here on the call who have done plenty of that. There are people that I see that have run for office who've done a lot of petition canvassing. We're actually going to do a training on that. We'll send out some details just about that, as well as we know that people are very, very interested in that petition canvassing. We'll do some best practices on how you can collect many, many signatures in short periods of time and what are some of the best practices on that. There is also voter registration and vote by mail canvassing. We'll be doing a little bit of that with our canvassing as well. And that's essentially where you're going out. You can do this in either high traffic areas or you can do it door to door in areas where you found that there are opportunities to register people. Think apartment complexes, students, dorms, other places where people may not be registered to vote at that particular address, and you want to make sure that they're registered to vote at that address. That's typically where we'll do those voter registration canvassing. Sometimes this is a little blind in the knocking. You may not know exactly who that particular person is that you are knocking, but it is very effective in areas where we know that people reflect our values. There's also the vote by mail canvassing. This is getting people signed up for that permanent vote by mail list. With our canvassing, we are definitely going to recommend that if you're going to areas where people tend to stay at that location and you know these are voters that reflect our values, we want to get them signed up for the permanent vote by mail list. So that's going to be a part of this program overall, is people that we know are going to stay at their current residence and they reflect our values. They're going to vote for people that reflect our values. We're going to want to make sure to get them signed up for the permanent vote by mail list. So that's going to be a big part of what we're doing as well. Then, of course, we have the issue-based canvassing, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing issue-based canvassing. Some would call it deep canvassing. I'm not particularly a fan of deep canvassing. I don't think that you have these 15-minute conversations on the doors with people. That becomes something else. You invite them to a meeting or to the office if you're going to do that. So, I like to call it issue-based canvassing, and I don't like it to carry on for quite as long as those that would call it deep canvassing like to do. I don't think that's necessarily the most effective use of time or resources, is to go in and have those prolonged conversations. Typically, you're arguing with the person if you're having these super long conversations with them. That's primarily what we're going to be focused on. And then there's also relational canvassing. We're also going to be doing some relational canvassing, the Neighborhood Canvas Leader program. If you're canvassing within your own neighborhood and you're building those long-lasting relationships, that's really relational canvassing, where you're building that relationship long-term with these voters. So what we're mainly focused on with this is going to be the issue-based and the relational canvassing. But all of those other things, we'll be doing those at various points as well. And some of that will be incorporated into what we're doing. So let's talk about really what the neighborhood canvas leaders do. So the neighborhood canvas leaders, if you're doing that and you're not canvassing in one of these 3 red districts of the state, we want to try to get as many people from safe areas as possible into those red parts of the state. But some people will want to canvass their own area. You're going to want to canvass your own neighborhood. You're going to want to canvass your own precinct. You may want to canvass another area that you grew up in, and you want to build those long-lasting relationships there. That's fantastic. We can get you set up to do that. What you want to do in those particular areas are you want to think about how you can build that long-lasting relationship with people. You want to be their trusted source of news about what's happening electorally, whether it's in DC or in Springfield, how their elected officials have voted on particular issues. And they will rely on you when it comes time for them to vote as well. They'll ask your opinion on these things if you become a trusted source of news. People tend not to believe what they're seeing in the media at this point. They don't view it as trustworthy. They trust people that are from their own community, that are coming to their doors frequently, that have built that relationship. And that's exactly what we're doing, is we're building that long-term relationship. So I would recommend for people that are doing the Neighborhood Canvas Leader program is to create a letter to leave at the doors for people. This should be a letter that is your own writing. We have templates that we will share with you all. And this should be in your own words of how you feel about the issue, what's going on in the community, what's going on specific legislation, who are the current elected officials, what are their positions on the issues. I'm sure many of you have done something very, very similar. This probably sounds very familiar to people that have done this sort of thing before. Also, I would recommend creating a newsletter for your precinct. So as you're going through the precinct, and we'll cover this as we go on in the presentation, you want to start to collect emails from people where you can start to send them emails about what's happening. So if you know there's a big protest that's coming up, you know that there's a town hall that's coming up, you know there's a particular vote that's coming up, you want to email people to know about these particular things. You want to have that constant communication with them. You are your neighborhood leader. You want to think of it that way. You're the trusted source of news within your area. You're building that long lasting relationship so that these particular voters and constituents within your area, they view you as the trusted source of information. And when you're sending something out based on whether it's a candidate form that's going on, whether it's a piece of legislation that we need to immediately start to call members of Congress or we need to call state reps or others on, you're sending that out. People will react when you send that out because they trust what you have to say. You also want to think about inviting people out to events within your area. So those can be coffees with candidates or elected officials. If an elected official wants to have a coffee event, let's say you're a particular member of Congress or someone running for Congress wants to have a coffee in your community, you can invite them out to this particular type of event. For those of you that may live in high rises or apartments, also think about community rooms that may exist within your building or other things where you can start to invite people within your community out to those as well. And for those of you who do live in those, you may be the only people that have access. If you live in a high rise or something else, you may be the only person that has access to actually knock in that particular building. So no one else may be able to reach that particular person but you. These are the kinds of things that you want to think about as you are that neighborhood canvas leader. This is the way that we will reach as many people as possible, and it leads to victory for us. Again, you want to be that trusted source of news. So I've mentioned this before. Everything that we do is all about building lists and building towards that GOTV universe. So if we think about whether it's canvassing, whether it's phone banking, anything that we do that is persuading people, that is getting people out, that's mobilizing people, it's all about building that list. We know that the path to victory is building that list. And, we can talk about, whether elections are going to happen or other things. Those are things that we should absolutely prepare for, and those will be different conversations. But we know that the most effective thing for us to do is to get the vote out, and we know that the midterms are going to be absolutely critical for us. So that's what we're focused on with this. And we can have those other conversations when we get to that particular point, but we know that us making sure that our state is as safe as possible, that we are building up as many barriers as possible within our state, and that we're getting as many people that reflect our values elected in surrounding states as well as here, so that we are able to tip the margins in Congress, are going to be the way that lead us to victory. If we're, out in role playing, Che Guevara and other things, that's really not a pathway to victory for us. Our pathway to victory is really electoral and making sure that we get as many people elected that reflect our values as possible. So there are multiple buckets that you want to think about that make up that GOTV universe. We have our persuadable voters. Those are voters that we're going to persuade. Those are voters that we're going to go to. We're going to talk to them about what particular issues they're concerned with. We'll talk with them about how those relate to our particular values and how their elected officials have voted on those particular issues. Then we have our turnout, sporadic voting, or unregistered voters. Those are people that reflect our values, but they just don't always vote, especially in these midterm elections. People vote in the presidential elections, but they don't always vote in these midterm elections. Those are people that we really need to encourage and drag to the polls. Those are going to be very, very key. And then we have those voters that reflect our values. Those people make up our GOTV universe. And those are the people that we absolutely want to get out to vote. And those are people that we also want to try to get to volunteer to come out to events. So if we're having coffees and other events, we want them to talk to their neighbors. We want them to talk to their friends and family and PTA and other things that they're involved in within the community, because that's how we win, is building those relationships deep within the community, having those conversations, showing that there is a sense of community, that there are other people that reflect their values, and that their vote matters. There are lots of parts of the state where people may feel alone. No one's ever knocked on their doors. They don't have that strong sense of community and relationship. That's what we want to change. We want to make sure that we are going to them where they are. We're building that sense of community, and we're getting them out to vote in these upcoming key elections, and we're getting them to contact their elected officials on these key matters. That's what we're doing with the phone banking. That's what we're going to do with the canvassing as well. So when they're taking these votes that are absolutely horrible, we want to make sure that we're calling them, we're flooding their phone lines to let them know that we are not happy with their votes on these particular items. Also, when we're having these empty chair town halls or when we're doing meetings or media events in front of their office, we want to invite as many of these people out as possible to show strength, to show that constituents are very upset about their positions on these issues. And as we start to do more and more of these, it becomes a snowball effect. People see it in the press. More and more people realize this is something they should be concerned with. Because we have to remember, we're all very concerned. We're paying attention. Most people are not paying attention. We think they are, but most people are not. Most people are busy in their day-to-day lives. They're taking their children to whether it's recital or to after-school practices. They're focused on that and not necessarily what's happening. That's why it's going to be very key that we let people know what's in the big, terrible bill, as a lot of these things won't hit until after the midterm elections, and that's by design. So again, it's moving those people through those buckets through conversations, and that's exactly what we're doing. Is we're having those conversations with people. So people that are in those undecided or persuadable voter bucket, we're moving them into the voters with our values, and people that don't always vote or unregistered. Those are people that we want to have those conversations with, and we want to move them into voters that always vote, that reflect our values, that become our GOTV universe. So let's talk a little bit about these two types of voters and what we're going to do with these two different types of voters. So those are those undecided and the supportive voters. So the undecided voters are voters who need to learn a little bit more about their elected officials' voting records. A lot of people, they're not aware. They may think that their elected official is a nice person. You can pick any one of those three members of Congress. I know that one of them in particular says a lot of nasty things. You all can guess which member that is. That just says a lot of things that are horrendous, quoting Hitler, and just a lot of things that are just above and beyond, a lot of racist things. We want to make sure that voters are aware of that. Many aren't aware of that. They may see her at events and think she's a very nice person, but they're not aware of how she actually feels on a lot of these issues and how she's voting, or the two gentlemen as well, how they're voting on these particular issues. So we want to make sure that they're aware of their voting record and how that particular voting record is affecting people in the community. Also, locally, we want people to know of how much the Trump policies are affecting them. There are a couple of areas in the state where we saw a shift. We want to get ahead of that. We want to try to find out what happened. We don't want to see any more voters start to shift in those particular areas. And as I mentioned, those are areas that have historically been very solidly supportive of our values. So we want to make sure that we are keeping those areas strong. Also, we want to ask them about what issues are important to them. We want to share information about their elected officials' positions, and then we want to ask for their support. We want to ask them that they support our values, that they join us, that they come to our various events. These may not be people that are necessarily going to volunteer, but these are people that we may want to get out to a town hall, like the one that we are going to have on the 21st. We're actually going to have a virtual town hall on the big ugly bill. We're going to have 3 members of Congress that are going to be on that. We're going to have Sean Casten, as well as Lauren Underwood and Nikki Baczynski. So please join us for that. But we want to invite these types of undecided voters to come to that to hear about how this bill is going to affect them directly. I would say that success with those undecided voters, it looks like a positive conversation. Remember, these are going to be long-going conversations. There is a reason that we are starting now and that we're not starting too late within the process. I think that's one thing that we saw within the last presidential cycle, is that canvassing just started very late in the process. There wasn't a lot going on early. People were very concerned with it, and it did have a very negative effect. You have to start these conversations very early on, and these are really conversations that need to be going on year-round. We shouldn't just be showing up when it's election time having these conversations with constituents and voters. We need to be having these conversations year-round so that people know that they're being heard and that we can relay their concerns up the chain to a lot of the policymakers. Let's talk about the supportive voters. These are people that we know support our values. So we want to ask them also what issues are important to them, and then we want to give them information about how they can get involved. So there are lots of ways that they can get involved. There are lots of local Indivisible groups that they can engage with. There are lots of local candidates that are going to be running in their areas. Maybe some of these people may even want to run for office themselves. We want to encourage them to do that if they are interested in that, as I know there are many, many parts of the state where they have trouble recruiting candidates. So this is a part of the way of how we build up people from where they are. We can't expect people to come to us. We have to go to them where they are. Remember, people are very busy in their day-to-day lives, and we may think that everyone knows about everything that's happening, but they don't. We're really in a bubble, and most people aren't aware. So that's exactly what we're doing by going to them where they are, is we're making them aware about what's happening in the community and how they can get involved and how these things are going to affect them. Success, I would say, for these supportive voters or people that are going to vote in the midterms. We want to make sure that they are going to vote in the midterms. And we want to make sure that they are actively involved. If these people are passionate and supportive of these issues, we want to get them engaged in some form, fashion, or way. That can be them coming out to an event, that can be them joining us with canvassing, that can be them phone banking, that can be them showing up at a candidate forum. We want to try to get these people as engaged as possible, and we want them to talk to their friends and neighbors as well. We want them talking to everyone down at the local PTA. We want them talking to everyone in their book club. We want them talking to as many people as possible. This is that relational organizing. So when we think about these conversations and how we can have high impact conversations, there are a couple of things that we want to think about throughout the process. We want to acknowledge everyone's point of view. We do not want to start arguments with people. So there are going to be people that have different points of view, especially in other parts of the state than our own. We want to acknowledge their point of view. We don't want to get into arguments with them. The one thing people remember is that if someone comes through their door and starts an argument with them, they are going to shut down. They are going to be less receptive to hear what you have to say. We also want to be curious and learn about where they're coming from. So we want to find out where they're coming from on these particular things. So this is after we ask them, what issues are they concerned with? Maybe they agree with us on 90% of the issues, but maybe there's one big issue that they don't agree with us on. This is where we want to find out where they're coming from. We want to understand how they feel about that particular issue. And then we want to identify their particular values, talk about a moment where we may have felt that same way. So let's say if someone was a federal employee and they were laid off, maybe we want to talk about a time where we were, or where a family member was laid off, or perhaps we want to talk with them about immigration if they're concerned with immigration, if they're seeing just what's happening with these raids all across the country. We want to talk with them about how we felt. Maybe some of our friends, our family members have suffered from this. We want to connect with them on those particular things. Maybe it's healthcare and the concern with losing potential healthcare. We want to connect with them on that. And then we want to share our particular values on that particular issue as well. Again, we don't want to argue with people. If someone disagrees with us on a particular issue, don't start an argument with them. Understand, express how you feel on that particular issue, but don't get into an argument with them. The one thing they're going to remember is the person argued with them, and they're going to shut down after that. This is going to be a long, ongoing relationship that we're building with these particular voters, and sometimes it takes time. Sometimes people are stubborn and they don't want to admit they may have been wrong on a particular issue. There are many, many people that may have voted for Trump or may have voted for those things, and they're starting to shift in their opinion now. If we go and argue with them, it's going to solidify them in that. So we don't want to have an argument with them. And then we want to share some accomplishments and hopes. So we've acknowledged their position. We have shared where we felt similar. We want to connect on those shared values. And then we want to share some hope and accomplishment. So we want to talk about how electeds that reflect our values have voted on these things, and how these things are going to, how they would be positive for their lives, and how their current elected official or MAGA Republicans may have voted against these things that may create a hardship for them and their particular family on that issue they're concerned with. And we want to be very, very specific on these policy differences. In fact, we're going to give you a contrast and compare sheet when you are out canvassing, so you will have that based on all of these particular issues, so you'll be able to quickly go back and forth on those issues and be able to relate the differences between the electeds on those particular issues. And then you want to share why you're volunteering volunteering with Indivisible Illinois, you want to explain why you're out there volunteering. What's the issue that you're most passionate about? Try to connect it with the issue that they're passionate about. That tends to work the best. And then you want to frame it. You want to say that this moment is a clear choice of why they need to get engaged in the upcoming election and why they should join us and volunteer. We want to try to get as many people out and engaged volunteering as possible or attending these rallies or town halls. We want to get as many people out as possible. We want people to understand that this is a critical constitutional crisis in our country, and that's how we're getting them involved. So again, the people that we're talking to, there are a couple of people that we're talking to. I'm going to go ahead and open all of these up here. We're primarily going to talk to two different types of voters, and there's a reason that we're talking to these two types of voters, and I'll tell you why we're not talking to the others. So we want to talk to those people that support our values, but they may not always vote. So those are people that we want to persuade, do a little bit of persuasion. We want to motivate them. They may be unmotivated. They may feel like nothing's going to change, that their vote doesn't matter. The election may have hurt them in a big, big way. They may feel that it doesn't matter. Maybe they went all out for the election and they feel as though their vote doesn't matter. So those are people that we need to motivate and educate. And then we've also got the people that are very likely to vote, but they're on the fence. Those are those voters that may have gone back and forth. Maybe they voted for Joe Biden, but they didn't vote in this last election, or maybe they voted for Barack Obama, but they didn't vote in the election. Maybe they're just on the fence about the issues. They don't know how they feel. So those are people that we want to persuade and we want to educate overall in the election. And we want to move them all into the undecided and the maybe voting into the very likely to support our values and the very likely to vote in the upcoming election. Now, if people want to go talk to directly voters that are MAGA Republican voters, we can supply that. I would just not recommend it for safety sake. That's something that we can talk about. We can look at how we can dip down into the scores and other things if you feel comfortable doing that in some of these areas. But if you think about elections overall and we think about what we're doing, it's really about the peripheries. It's about people that we know are either not turning out to vote or people that are on the fence. Those are the people that can sway these elections. People that are very, very set in their ways, it's going to be very unlikely that we're going to change their position. There are a lot of people that are saying that if we just have this magic messaging, we're somehow going to get all these voters to come out and vote in these upcoming elections. This is unrealistic, I will say. These are voters that have not voted since before Clinton for candidates that reflect our values. I don't think any type of magic messaging is going to change their position. If they did not vote for Bill Clinton, they did not vote for Al Gore, they did not vote for Barack Obama, they did not vote for Joe Biden, they did not vote for Hillary Clinton, they did not vote for Kamala Harris. These are voters that we are probably not going to be able to reach. They may shift over time with some of the other things that we're doing, but we are much better served as we have limited resources talking to voters that are undecided or voters that don't always vote in elections. Those are going to be the best people to reach. Anyone that's selling you that they're going to be able to get these other voters out to vote, it's almost like the dieting things that you see where people were selling, dieting secrets over the years, and they were going to sell you snake oil to do these things. So think of it that way. So let's do some tips and best practices with canvassing overall. This is going to be very, very familiar to many of you. I know that we have a wide variety of people here. I know there are people who are on who have been canvassing since before we had access to Van and other things. They were using poll sheets and other things back in the day, people who have been canvassing for 30, 40 years. So I know you are very, very familiar with this, but we also have people who have never canvassed before, and we want to make sure that you all are as comfortable as possible while canvassing and that you feel ready to go out and actually have these conversations with people. I would say canvassing is my second favorite thing to do. Voter registration is my favorite, but canvassing is very, very fun. You get to go out, you get to meet new people. People are typically very, very friendly on the doors. They're much more friendly on the doors than they are on the phone. You get to see people that really reflect your values that you never knew reflected your values, whether it's in your community or in surrounding communities. I love canvassing within my own community, as well as going to different places and canvassing throughout Illinois and our surrounding states. So remember that when you are canvassing, you represent the organization or the candidate or the initiative that you are advocating for. So you want to be respectful when you're there. You don't want to be in an argument with people on these particular issues. You know, a lot of people have Ring doorbells. They would love to, if it's someone that doesn't reflect our values, they love to catch you on video arguing with them so that they can put it on social media. So I would avoid doing that. Also, just don't get into arguments with people. You know, disengage. You know, you respect their opinion, and then move on to the next person. It's okay if you don't know the answer, say so. If you don't know the answer, don't make it up. Say that you don't know the answer, say that you'll get back to them, get down their contact information, and we can follow up. You can raise it up the chain, you can raise it up to the Indivisible Illinois board. We'll get back with that particular person with the correct answer on that particular issue. So just feel free to say that you don't know if you don't know the answer. It's also about the quantity as well as the quality of conversations. I talked with you about my gripe with deep canvassing. When you're spending these, 15, 20-minute conversations with people, that's better served having them actually come out to a town hall or to an event or to one of our live streams where they can have that in-depth conversation. Typically, you want to keep these conversations a little shorter. These are going to be longer than your normal voter ID and persuasion conversations, but they shouldn't be these prolonged half an hour conversations. I've seen people do that with some of the deep canvassing, and that is not the most effective use of your time, having these 30-minute conversations or even 15-minute conversations with people in the doors. The script is a guide. The script is a guide. Keep that in mind. Use your own words. You know the best thing to say. Make sure that it's natural, what you're saying when you're on the doors. You don't want to be reading directly from the script. You want to take in internally what's on that script and then read it in your own words at the doors. And you'll build up a rhythm as you're doing it overall. Again, you don't want to argue with people. You want to stick to the 4 steps. You want to acknowledge. You want to identify the values. You want to talk about the accomplishments, whether it's their elected official has voted terribly on this particular bill, or maybe it's people that reflect our values have voted the right way on these particular issues and how they are going to save us from some of these cuts or other horrible policies that are in place. And that's part of the contrast as well. You want to contrast it. Also, you only want to go to doors that are on your list. Those doors that are not on your list are not on it for a reason. Perhaps that person is not able to vote that's in the other house, or perhaps that person just does not reflect our values at all, and you may not have a good conversation with that particular person. The only time I would say that you do want to go to some of those doors that are not on the list, perhaps, is if you're doing voter registration in an apartment complex, or if you're knocking in an apartment complex where you see that people are very transient and the person may no longer be there. Also, you want to keep in mind that someone's going to go back through the data. So if you're collecting data such as vote by mail forms, other forms, you want to make sure that you are working with the people to be as clear as possible, and that you also are being as clear as possible with the way that you and they are writing. We're primarily going to be using Minivan for this, which is an app on your cell phone, which we're going to go through momentarily. So you don't quite have to worry about this as much as we did in the past, where we were carrying around clipboards, heavy clipboards with sheets of paper and writing everything down. Someone had to data enter it. I remember horror stories about that, of having to enter this data and being up till 2, 3 in the morning entering data. We don't have to do that as much anymore, but there's still some data that we will have, and there'll be pledge cards and other things that we'll collect in the doors as we move further and further along the cycle. You also want to keep your phone by your side. You don't want to have your phone up at the door reading directly from it. That freaks people out if you're doing that. You just want to have it by your side, know who the person's name is. You want to have a conversation with them. You don't want to have a conversation with your phone and then them from your phone. You want to be talking to them directly. It also, worries people sometimes if they see you reading off of a list from your phone. Also, literature, you want to leave literature at the door of everyone who is not home, also with supporters and those that are undecided. So as of right now, we won't have literature, but we will eventually have literature, especially in those 3 districts. We're working on getting that literature for those three MAGA Republican districts. For the neighborhood canvassing leader program, I'm going to recommend that you all create your own neighborhood canvassing leader letter that you're able to leave at the doors. Eventually, we'll have some literature for there as well. But the best thing for them is going to be that letter that you have typed up that has the information that you want to relate to them about your particular community. No solicitation signs, they don't apply to us, but you want to use your best judgment. I knock on doors that say no solicitation, and if the person gets into an argument, I say, oh, sorry, I just didn't see it. I don't get into arguments with them about no solicitation doesn't apply to us or other things. It doesn't. It's political activities, so it doesn't apply. But I don't get into that argument with them. I thank them and then I move along if they have that. I've had many great conversations at no solicitation door signs. In fact, some of my best doors that I knock are actually at those no solicitation signs. Those are really for people that are selling candy or other things. They don't want them coming to their doors. And even some households, the no solicitation sign may have been there for years. It may have been there before that particular person. Also, if the police are called on you, thank the police, let them know what you're there for. If they ask you to leave, leave at that time. You want to go to fight another day with that. That's something that will relate back to our allies, ACLU and others, but don't get into an argument with the police while you're there. I would move along. You may want to end in that particular area and move to another area for the day. But that's something that we will follow up with. We will actually call the police department and have lawyers call that police department so that that doesn't happen again. But you're not going to win an argument with the police there with them. So don't get into an argument with the police. If you're there, they ask you to leave after you've told them what you were there doing, leave that particular area. Also, try to finish all of your list. So if you're one of the neighborhood canvas leaders, you may have a big list. If you're doing an entire precinct, you may have hundreds of voters within your precinct, of which this will take many days for you to complete it. It may take weeks for you to go through it a little bit at a time. If you are doing a one-shot day where you're going into one of these deep red districts, try to finish every door on that list because you may be the only person that talks to voters at that particular door. And what you have to remember are a lot of these people in some of these red districts have never had a canvasser come to their door. There just aren't enough canvassers to cover all of the turf. So that's why we want to try to get as many canvassers as possible into some of these areas. And even in some of the other areas that are not red, there have not been people that are canvassing all of these areas. So we want to make sure that we are having as many conversations with these people as possible, letting them know that they're not alone, and letting them know how their elected officials have voted on these particular issues. Also, when you're out, you want to drink as much water as possible. Take a water bottle with you. Do not, and I have seen this happen where people don't drink water because they're worried about having to go to the bathroom and then they have heat stroke or something happens. So you want to drink as much water as possible. If you need to leave your area to go to the bathroom, that is perfectly fine. But make sure that you are hydrated, especially as we get into the hotter months of the year. July and August are the hottest months of the year. And in the wintertime, you want to have hand warmers and other things to make sure that you are as warm as possible so that your fingers don't freeze while you're out. Also, wear comfortable shoes. Don't feel that you have to be dressed nicely when you're out there canvassing. You want to dress as people tend to dress within that area. You want to dress a little above how people dress in that area as you are representing the organization and the campaign, but don't go out in a suit canvassing. Try to be as comfortable as possible and try to look as neat as possible when you're there. Be respectful of others' points of view, be friendly and engaging in your conversation with people. Remember, you're out, you're talking to friends in the neighborhood, and these are people that you want to build that long-lasting relationship with. And I should mention this as well, even when we're going into some of these red districts, we want to try to send the same people, if possible, into those districts so that they're building those relationships. So if you want to adopt a red area and you're going into a particular turf or a particular precinct or a particular area, we want to try to send you as many times as possible so that you're able to build that relationship with those voters in that particular area because they're going to believe what you have to say if you've built that relationship much more than a random person coming to their door because they've seen you, they know that you're there quite frequently, even if you're not from that area. Also, you want to find out what issues that particular voter finds important. You want to find out why they're voting, and you want to talk with them about how volunteering is important. All supporters, you want to ask them to volunteer, and you want to collect as much contact information from them as possible. So typically I try to get their email address and their cell phone number. Those are the two things that you want to get, because that's the best way for us to get in touch with them. A lot of people will not give you that. That's okay. But if they do, you want to collect that information. That'll be a part of your letter that you send out. Also, we'll be able to follow up with them about things that we have going on, whether it's a town hall that's happening in the area, an empty chair town hall, a rally, whether we need them to contact their member of Congress, etc. You also want to be polite. You want to thank them for their time. Be persistent. Knock twice and ring the doorbell. So many homes, the doorbell does not work. Some homes, it's a fake doorbell. There are lots of fake ring doorbells that people put for security reasons, and it doesn't work. So typically, I knock as well as ring the doorbell. Sometimes the doorbell doesn't work. You also want to wait a little while for the person. Also, try to take a look at the age of the person as well. And you may want to wait a little longer if you see that the person is elderly, that you're at their door, because it may take them a little bit more time to come to the door, especially if they're coming from a second or third floor down to the first floor, or they're coming from somewhere far within their house. So give them a little bit of time. Don't just knock and run off from that particular house. Give them time to come to the door. And you want to have fun. Canvassing is fun. It's my second favorite activity to do after voter registration. It's a lot of fun. It's great exercise to get out there. You get to meet a lot of nice people when you're out canvassing. So some don'ts. I don't go inside of homes. You can use your judgment on that, but I typically just don't do that, and I wouldn't recommend it. You don't know whose house that is, and you want to be safe. Also, if you're going inside someone's house, you're having that 30-minute conversation. Remember, I mentioned earlier that you don't want to have these prolonged conversations while you're at the doors. If you're going into someone's house, you're going to have a long conversation. I remember early on, when I was canvassing with a partner out at one of the doors, and typically I would recommend people canvass with someone else as well, especially for your first few times. They went inside of a home, and I went in with them, and we were there for 5 hours. So you just don't want to do that. You want to try to avoid that. Going into someone's home typically leads to a prolonged conversation. Maybe that's something that you want to set up after that, where you're having a visit with that particular person, but not while you're out canvassing. Also, the mailbox. Putting literature in a mailbox is a federal offense. Only the postman can touch the mailbox. That's why UPS, Amazon, FedEx, they don't touch mailboxes. So typically what I like to do is I like to roll the literature up, or roll the letter, and I will put it between the doorknob and the door, or else fold it and stick it between the crack of the door. I also don't stick things under the doormat. I've seen people do this. Someone can slip and fall on that. You don't want to leave literature on the ground where someone can slip and fall on it. Also want to be very, very careful of storm doors. I remember a few organizers that I had on a campaign I was working on. They put literature in the storm doors, and they opened their storm doors and put it there, those glass doors, and the doors didn't shut properly, and big wind came through, and all of the doors broke. Well, many doors broke, and then the campaign had to pay for those. So you want to avoid that as well. You want to make sure that you're sticking it in a way that doesn't cause any particular harm to that particular person's doors. Also, you don't want to spend more than 10 minutes at each household. We spend a little bit more time since this is more of an issue-based canvassing. You also don't want to leave any question unasked with a particular voter. You also want to connect with voters and make it worth their while by capturing as much data as possible. We're not going to do the role play today. There are too many that are on the call. We thank all of you for joining. We're going to do some follow-up calls as well. We'll do some of the role playing of what we go through these conversations as well. So I'm going to set some expectations for you all when you are out on the doors. Most people are just not going to answer the door. Most people are not going to answer the door. You're going to get at the most a 25% contact rate. And that's on a good day. On a Sunday evening, you'll get a 25% contact rate. Right now, if you go out and knock right now, probably 25% of people will answer the door, because it's a Sunday evening and everyone's home. But if you're canvassing on a Saturday, you may get a 15% contact rate. It's going to be somewhat low. So if you think about that, for every 100 doors you knock, you're going to get about 15 people that are going to actually answer the door. Contact rates tend to be very, very low, but it's still higher than everything else. It's higher than phone banking. It's higher than mail or other things where they're just getting in there, tossing in the trash can. So it's a low contact rate, but that's why we are going through as many times as possible with people, and we're having those conversations. As it multiplies, the more times you go through, and we're having multiple people knocking on these particular doors. Also, you can't convince everyone. Sometimes a stone wall is made of stone, and you just have to know when to disengage and move on. They may change their mind at a later time. Just don't get into arguments with them. Once you argue with them, they are never going to change their mind. They're going to remember that the person that had those values came to their doors and was arguing with them. Also, after it, you debrief with us. We'd love to hear how things went. We'd love to get feedback from you. We will change things in the script as they go along. We are going to be very, very flexible with this. We don't want to be one of those rigid organizations where things don't shift. Typically, when that happens, people tend to lose, and they lose elections, or they lose on the issues when they're not changing things. When we're hearing feedback from you on the ground, on the doors in particular areas, we will make changes to our script and to things that we're doing, even some of our messaging. So what I want to do now is I want to play a little video of Minivan. I know we're getting close to 8 o'clock, and I know some people may have to jump off. So what I'm going to do here for you all is we're going to talk a little bit about Minivan, and then I'm going to play a little bit of a video for you all about Minivan. So I'm going to show you all what our script looks like as of right now. Are you all able to see that, the script? You know, shake your head if you can see it. Great, great, great. So this is the script. We're keeping it as simple as possible for the time being. You know, I put myself into the script. Essentially, it's the person available. And remember, the script's just a guide. My name is, and I'm your local neighborhood canvas leader with Indivisible, Illinois, stopping by to introduce myself and find out what current issues are important to you. Then we're finding out what issues are important to them. We'll add some additional issues. We're going to get feedback, find out what issues people are finding to be the most prevalent, and we will add those to it. You'll click that particular issue. It will shrink down on that particular issue. Find out what issue is their most important issue. You'll indicate that. Then from that, that's where you want to give that contrast and compare on it. You want to talk with them about how you're concerned with that issue as well, and how Trump Republicans have voted on that particular issue, and how the upcoming cuts are going to have a devastating impact on that particular issue. So if it's healthcare, you can talk about the cuts to Medicare and Medicaid with a new terrible bill, the big horrible bill that has come out. You can talk about cuts to the environment. You can talk about the immigration rates that you see happening. You can talk about what's happening with AI, what's happening with the LGBTQ community, what you find that's happening with the African American community and other minority communities. These are all things that you can put into there, and you can relate of how these are issues that you're concerned with as well. And because that person is concerned about that issue, that's where we want them to get involved with Indivisible. So can you get involved with Indivisible to help make that lasting change? And that's where we'll follow up with them about all of the things that we have going on. So that could be the various town halls, the virtual events that we have going on. It could be the rallies that we have going on, getting them to come out to some of those, getting them engaged overall. So you're going to indicate that. If they are interested in getting engaged, or if they're even not interested in getting engaged, try to get their contact information. So that's where you will actually go. If you see where it says details there, you'll click on the details. It'll take you over to this details screen, and that's where you're going to be able to put in their email address and their phone number. So I would try to enter in. You see where it says add a phone number, add an email address. You can add that directly into the system so that you have their email address and phone number. And for those of you that are making these letters, the neighborhood canvas leader letters, we can make sure that you have all of those email addresses that you're collecting so that you are able to email these people your letter as you're sending out your newsletter that you're sending out frequently, and we'll be able to follow up with them during phone banking as well. So I'm going to go back out of this because one skipped. I'm going to play a video for you all just about Minivan, so that you all are able to let me know if you all are able to hear this video. It's going to go through just Minivan for those of you that have never used Minivan before, as I know there are many that have not used Minivan before. One thing that you're going to do, and I'm going to send out detailed instructions on this, is first creating your action ID. I'm actually going to skip over this part right now because I know there's some that have been on that have done this before, but we are going to come back to this. I just do want to wrap up a few other things before this, a few key takeaways before we go into that. So, a couple of things. You're going to want to download Minivan Touch or Minivan on the Android. It's Minivan Touch on Apple. It's Minivan on Android. You will need a fully charged smartphone. You're going to need walking shoes, and obviously you're going to need water. And if it's wintertime, you'll need hand warmers. So a little bit of the key takeaways from today is that canvassing is a key into moving people into the GOTV list through in-person conversations. And our canvassing will target individuals who are likely to vote, but we don't know exactly how they will vote. And remember that contacting voters through canvassing is likely to increase the impact that they will vote in the upcoming election by 3 to 8%. So every time we talk with someone, we're able to persuade them, we're able to make sure that they get out to vote. It increases by about 3 to 8% for each contact. And it's very similar for phone banking as well. If you think about everything that we do, it's a multi-step approach. So whether it's the rallies that we're having, those earned media events where we're getting the press to come out and we're building media attention about these particular issues, it's the phone banking that we're doing and getting people to call their elected official. That's a part of it as well. Or if it's the door-to-door canvassing that we're doing, it all plays into it. And the canvassing is really just going to people where they are. Is not everyone's coming out to our rallies. There are people that are coming out to our rallies are typically people that reflect our values or people that are so fed up that they're coming out to our rallies. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to that minivan video, and I know a couple of people have questions as well. We're going to get to those questions right after this minivan video. And I apologize for going a little over 8 o'clock, but we are almost done, and we'll go to the Q&A, and we'll stay on as long as we need to for that. But I'm going to go ahead and play this video, and let me know if you all hear the video. Can you all hear the video? If you can shake your head if you can hear, great.
Yes, we do.
Oh, it paused, froze.
With Minivan, our canvassing app for iOS and Android, canvassing has never been easier. Minivan provides a canvassing experience that is more efficient, effective, and fun for all canvassers, especially first-time volunteers. Before getting started, download Minivan from the Google Play or Apple App Store and log in using your Action ID. If you don't have an Action ID, you can create one using your email address. Select Login using Action ID. Once you are logged into Minivan, you'll be taken to a landing page where you'll enter in your list number that is provided by your organizer. Once your turf is downloaded, it will take you to the My List tab, where you can see a map view of your turf packet and a list view where you can see the individual addresses of each home. Talking to someone who's not on your list? Add people to your list in the search bar. Click on the icon and search the database for their information. Minivan syncs automatically with your campaign or organization's database and updates periodically to provide you the most up-to-date information about the people on your list, such as if they have voted or been canvassed by another person on your team. The Minivan map is interactive. You can click directly on the household in the map and an address box will pop up. Click on the box and it will take you to the voters listed at that address. Just click on a person's name and proceed with your canvass. The household view of your list shows the general area you will be canvassing, with the houses sorted by the address per street. You can adjust your list from household view to people view, with the list resorting to an alphabetical order by last name of the people on your list. You can also filter your canvas list. You can filter by odd and even households if you are splitting your turf, or filter the list to those you have not contacted previously. You can filter using a variety of filters that may fit your canvassing needs with options that are fully customizable by your field organizer. As you begin canvassing, you'll notice one or more icons under each address. Each icon represents a household member. Multiple icons in the home represent multiple members to be canvassed. As you canvass people, the icon color will change as you mark your progress, with gray representing a person to be canvassed, blue representing a successful canvass, orange representing a person not being home, and black representing inaccessible, lit drop, or any other canvass result. Whether in household view or people view, you can quickly label a person as not home or as a lit drop by swiping right on their name or address in iOS or clicking and holding on their name and address in Android. Select LD for lit drop or NH for not home. Once selected, the icon will change to the corresponding color. If you swipe right on the address, it will label the entire household as either lit drop or not home. Swipe right on an individual person only to just label them. As you begin talking with people on your list, you'll click on their name in Minivan and it will take you to the script page. You also see a details page where you can add important details like a phone number or email. The notes page is where you can add important notes in regard to your interaction. The history page will show you the last time the organization has contacted a person, breaking down the history by contact history, survey question history, and activist codes. At the top of the script page, you will see I couldn't reach this contact. Select this option if the person is unavailable. You'll be provided a variety of options for the person's unavailability, including not home and lit drop. Choose the most accurate option and proceed to the next person. If the person is home, proceed according to your script and mark the answer that the person provides. Based on their answer, the script will branch off into follow-up questions that you can ask them. Once you are finished, proceed to the next person or go back to your list. If you go back to your list, you will see that your canvassing has been successfully updated. You can now proceed to your next person. Under the Next Door tab, your households are organized by distance. If available, our new smart feature optimizes your route for walking or driving, providing you the most efficient path for your canvassing route. You can check your progress under the Progress tab. Minivan does the math for you, so you can quickly check and report your progress and responses at the end of your canvass. If you are splitting your turf with a partner, you can keep up to date with their progress in Minivan. The red icon presented on a household symbolizes that someone else has already walked this house. You will also be able to see which people have already voted in Minivan. You are now equipped with everything you need to have a successful canvass using Minivan. If you encounter any issues while using Minivan, please reach out to your field organizer with any additional questions.
Okay, so I will make sure to send that video around to everyone, so you will have that video so that you can go through that as well. We'll also send the recording of this around, but I know that there were quite a few questions. There was one question that was early on. I don't know if that person, it was Jackie. I don't know if she's still on. See, her hand isn't raised anymore. I don't know if it was Jackie Trinaire or if it was Jackie... See, there were two Jackies on, I do believe.
Jackie Dalmains was about what app is going to be used, and so we answered that in the chat before even the Minivan video.
Fantastic. Right. Are there other questions that people have? I'm going to go ahead and we have a smaller group now. I'm going to try to unmute everyone. We'll see how that works. Everyone, if you could raise your hand, and we will go ahead and unmute you all as you raise your hand. So
Yeah.
if you don't know where the hand raise icon is, it's a little hand that's at the bottom of your screen. If you tap that, you'll appear to the front of the screen, and then we can...
There were other questions in the chat, though.
Oh, there are other chats? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there were other questions. Now, Allison Faith Powell Pape had several questions that I think I may have answered. I just want to make sure I did. Allison, did your questions get answered by me or Patrick or somebody else?
So Allison, I'm going to go ahead and make it so that everyone should be able to unmute themselves now. It may take it a few minutes. It was Allison, correct?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So where do we get the list ID from?
So that I will supply to you. It's just going to depend, and I'm going to send a feedback form for people. If they want to canvass their own community, so somewhere within their own community, maybe they want to canvass the neighborhood that they grew up in. So perhaps people live in, let's say Wheaton now, but they grew up in Chicago on the south side and they want to go canvass in Chicago on the south side, they can absolutely do that as well. If they let me know where they're interested in canvassing, we will get that set up. Or if they want to go into one of those key battle ground districts, those 3 Republican districts across the state, which are our top priority, we can set that up as well. So we're working on getting a few things set up in those areas. We've got some captains that are going to be able to meet people that are coming from other parts of the state into those areas. And we're going to do some key canvas launch days in those areas. But if you're interested in canvassing your own community, just let me know and I will get that set up for you.
Sorry, that was.
Oops, I think you're on mute now. Allison?
That actually it. Can you hear me?
I can hear it.
Okay. That my community is in District 12. I'm in one of the most Republican county in District 12. So we don't have a candidate yet. I'm very concerned about that. So yeah, we have a lot of issues here in 12.
We can absolutely get you set up for that, and I will be in touch shortly about that.
And can I just interject with something? Allison, a lot of times, if you don't have a congressional candidate, there are down ballot candidates that direly need you. So I mean, especially, and even if, let's say, for example, hardly anyone wants to run, if you can all concentrate on, let's say, a county board district or something like that, and just really concentrate on it, sometimes that helps.
Well, except our problem is we have one of the terrible Republican representatives that won't speak to us. So we need somebody to run or something, or it's going to just be the same thing all over. That's, I guess, one of the reasons why you guys are hitting our area so hard. So
yes, that is exactly right.
Okay, fantastic.
Patrick, this is Linda. Can you just clarify, you're actually going to send whoever signed up for this a survey to find out what they're interested in doing, right? Because somebody was wondering.
That is correct.
Do they do it now? They don't do it now. You'll send it out and you'll let them know. And then once you know where you're sending them, that's when they'll get the list. So just to clarify.
That is correct. And it will take me some time to create these canvassing turfs for everyone. So just be a little patient with me on that, and we will get these to you as quickly as possible.
Now, there were other people that Leslie Osborne. Did you get your question answered? And I can't remember.
So she said no. Can you repeat what your question was, Leslie?
You should be able to unmute yourself.
The question was, how do we exceed past canvassing successes?
So how do you exceed those canvassing successes?
Yes.
I would say building those long-term relationships. I think that a lot of the canvassing that has happened in the past and what we've seen in areas that have had great success are they have been able to build those great relationships. And there are certain parts of the state where there just haven't been as many people building those relationships. So if we look at a lot of areas that have flipped, one of the things that we've seen are that people have built those great relationships within their specific community in their precincts and their local neighborhoods by canvassing quite frequently. And I know there are a lot of people on here who do some of that canvassing and some of those people who run some of those canvassing efforts in some of the various townships. So it's building those types of relationships within those areas, starting early like we are now, and making sure that this is a year-round process. It's not just when the election period comes along. That's part of how we recruit candidates, as well as that we're going and we're knocking on doors and we're building these relationships with people, and we're finding out who these people are, we're getting them engaged in the process, and we're encouraging them to run.
Okay, the next one is Eric Martell. Did Eric did you get your question answered?
I didn't. Thanks, Marcy. No, I was curious. You didn't, in the list of priorities, you didn't mention Pritzker's reelection campaign, and I was curious where that might fall in, because as you were talking about keeping Illinois safe as for humans to live in, that's a pretty important one.
So I will say that the canvassing that we're doing is mainly focused on federal races. I'm just going to put that caveat out there. But what people do on the doors, what people do on the doors, I don't know what people are doing while they're out on the doors. So If people are out on the doors and they're talking to people about other things, I don't know that they're doing that. But we're primarily focusing on the federal races just because of the way that we're set up. So that's primarily what we're going to be doing. But what we do at the top of the ballot helps the everything down ballot as well. So if we're getting people out that reflect our values, it's going to help every race up and down.
Okay, thanks.
Hoping that answers your question.
I don't know, Linda, if you want to chime in with other people, or if I should just.
You can keep going. I'm checking off as you're doing it, so
Okay,
I'll let you know if
okay,
you miss anybody.
Okay, Catherine White had a couple different questions at a couple different times.
Catherine? I don't know if you're still there.
Hi. My main question was just if we're building relationships, I'm concerned about signing up to be a neighborhood canvas leader if I might end up leaving the country at some point. I have a bunch of targets on my back, and I don't want to leave everybody in the lurch. Will there be others? There's a possibility I might be able to transfer to somebody else, but it's not something I can guarantee in advance.
Catherine, I definitely, understand, I'm sorry that you have so many targets. I know a lot of people feel very similar. A lot of people have talked about leaving. Any time that you can give is highly beneficial. So the time that you are still here, if you can build those relationships for that time, it's definitely something that you're going to be able to pass on. What we're really doing while we're out canvassing and building these relationships within these particular precincts, or we want to find other people that can help us to knock these doors. The more people that are knocking in the precincts, the more doors we'll be able to knock. We can actually expand the universe out. So let's say if we're only talking to voters that reach a certain threshold, and that may be 200 or 300 voters within a particular area. If there are more people that are knocking, it can become highly specialized, where we can increase the range and knock even more doors in that particular area. So you should definitely be looking for other people that can join you in knocking while you're out knocking on the doors.
Okay.
Okay, so next was Stephanie Sabo. Stephanie, did you get your question answered? I can't remember what the questions were, so that's why I have to clarify.
I think so. I asked a question. It was underneath Allison's when it came to I asked a couple, and once it came to the list when it came to canvassing in regards to that. Just because Illinois 12 and Miller's district, even though it's hard, hugely Republican, these people still have. There's still a lot of people out in these districts that still have they still have the same values or policies that we want to promote and progress. It's just that they fall underneath that propaganda, misinformation umbrella and everything, and they vote for Trump in regards to that. So targeting the people that maybe could be, I don't know, somewhat can be flipped. And also I think that I asked one about who we should inform in regards to what areas we want to canvass, which that got answered too. For the ones who are new in regards to all this, will we have a buddy that's been doing this for a while to help us? Because I'm interested, but this is my first time ever doing it. I could talk to people. I just, the whole canvassing's new.
So we are definitely going to try to buddy people up in specific areas. I can't guarantee that, though. There are some parts of the state where there may not be a lot of experienced canvassers. We will do the best possible to train you on this to feel as comfortable as possible, but we will also try to pair you up with folks in that area when you are out canvassing. So we're going to try our best to pair you up with someone experienced, but if there is no one experienced, we will do our best to try to make sure that we have pairs that are as trained as possible. We'll do lots of role playing to make you feel as comfortable as possible in those particular areas.
Thank you.
Okay, next was Connie Radcliffe. Connie, did you get your question answered? I wonder if she's off.
I think she might have left.
Okay.
So Mary Ann Quinlan had some questions.
Yeah, hi. I like what first of all, one thing that you said that I'd never heard before that I really liked was when you talk to people about volunteering, I always interpreted that as like, do you also want to knock doors? And you made a good point about there's so many more ways to volunteer, like show up to a town hall. So thank you for that, and I'll take that to heart. My question has to do with if you're canvassing in an area where you have an opportunity to develop these long-term relationships, it does kind of help to have access to the data afterwards. So how does that work for if that's the goal for a canvasser, that to follow up with those individuals, to put them on their newsletter list, et cetera, what's the process for sharing that data?
Absolutely. So you can see all of the data in Minivan until it's committed. And that's just technical, something that happens at the back end. Essentially, the data stays there for 40 some odd days, and then we commit the data. After that, I'll send that particular slot of data to you. But up until that time, you can actually see everything that is in Minivan. So if you're adding information into Minivan, you actually can see that. You can see the person's name, you can see their phone number, you can see the email addresses that you've added or that we already have in the system for that particular person.
Okay, thanks.
There's some there. Terry Riley had a very good question, and and I think Jackie Dallin said I'll cook anyway. So Terry, go ahead. I think yours is a good question that people want to know.
Oh, well, I put it in the chat. No, I just said if like we're willing, next year in summer or fall to go to Southern Illinois for 2 or 3 days to do some canvassing in either the Miller district or the Bose district or wherever, is there any money in the Indivisible Illinois budget to help cover some costs of meals, hotels, whatever? Because a lot of us are from, I know Mary Ann and a few other people on here. We're in the Chicago area, so.
Let's circle back on that. Not at this time, but as we get closer and closer to the election itself, we're going to build towards that. We will build towards that. I think it's perhaps something that we can do, but that's something that we're going to keep in mind, and we'll revisit that. We will build towards it.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Pat Burke had a question. I don't know if it got answered. Pat, are you still here? I think, oh, he's still here. Pat, did you still have a question? You just have to unmute yourself. Okay, so he's not getting on, so maybe not.
Anyway, so I think mostly I think that is most of the questions in the chat. Linda, did you see from anyone else that possibly
Yeah, it was the only one from Pat, but he's not responding, so.
I mean, it looks like
2 hands raised.
Yeah.
And actually I know that I know that earlier Jeannie Covert had her hand raised when we were not doing hand raises. So maybe can we go back to Jeannie if she's still on? Jeannie, are you still on? Maybe not. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So guess we'll go to Melanie.
In response to Terry's question about funding to come down south here, if there isn't indivisible funding, we might be able to, bunk up, come stay in my house or, figure out stuff like that.
That would
Very
be
good.
great.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Okay. Georgianne? Georgianne D'Angelo? I think she may be frozen.
You might be frozen. So I found out Pat couldn't unmute. So Patrick, the question is, who owns the data collected?
So that
how would
would
that
be
work?
that would be us, Indivisible. We own the data. But for you that are in that particular precinct, we will definitely share that with you. That way you're able to write those letters and other things to people that are in your specific neighborhood area.
At any point, and this is a question I don't know, so I'll ask you, Patrick. At any point, will you start sharing, as we get closer to the election, will there be sharing between candidates and the DNC? And the only reason I'm asking is I know people start getting really pissed off when we all show up at the same time, right around election time.
So that involves data sharing agreements.
That's tricky. That's
We will
really
not knock the same doors. I'm going to put it to you that way, but I don't. We won't knock the same doors. That's all I'll say on that. But that involves a lot of things with committees and legal ease that we probably don't want to get into on the call.
and money.
Yes. Because that starts to become donations and it starts to fall into campaign finance and other things that we don't want to get into.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since it looks like we're at a lull, can I just mention that we do have some events coming up, and I put them in the chat, but I would like to at least announce them real quick. First of all, you know, since we're talking about going into these red districts and canvassing if in the 3 Republican districts, let me remind everyone that we have phone banks every Sunday from 4 to 5:30, calling voters in these 3 Republican districts, letting them know that their member of Congress voted to cut Medicaid and what it means for them and what it means for their communities, and to call their offices and let them know that they are very unhappy about this. So we're doing that every Sunday, and I just put the links in the chat for the next 2 weeks. Then another thing that's coming up, and this is really pretty cool and exciting. We are the third Monday of every month, Indivisible Illinois does have a panel, and it's on Zoom. It's from 7:30 to 9 Central Daylight Time, the third Monday of every month. And this month we're doing it on the big ugly bill, what Trump's tax scam means for you, and it's a virtual panel, like I said, and we're going to have 3 Congress people. We're going to have Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski, Congresswoman Underwood, and Congressman Caston. So that Sean Caston. So please, that will be really cool. So anyway, but and we can always use more phone bankers. Actually, I know several of you on this call are phone bankers, and I do appreciate that. So yes, anyway, that's all I have.
If no one else has any questions. Oops, it looks like there's one more question, I think, in the chat.
Who are the 3 Congress people? Oh, that's that are going to be on the panel, or that we're calling their congressional districts. The ones that are going to be on the panel are Representative Nikki Budzinski, Representative Sean Caston, and Representative Lauren Underwood. Those are the ones that are going to be on the panel. Okay.
And Patrick, Mary Olmsted, I think, wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
So Mary, if you could unmute yourself. You should be able to.
Okay. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is, you referred to, I don't know if I heard it right, it started with an L, lit drop or something like that. I don't know. I didn't know what you were talking about. Like, that was a response in the app when we were, documenting our data.
So there is a way for you to mark things as lit drop. I wouldn't
Is
do
that, are
that.
you saying LIT?
Oh,
Yeah,
like literature.
literature drop.
Literature drop.
You left
Oh,
literature at the door.
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know what lit meant.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, candidates little flyers.
Okay. And my other questions are like technological questions. Like, why can't I successfully access this Zoom call on my laptop when I enter the link that is given to me in my text? Because I can't see the little tiny print that you put up there, you know, for us to all see on my phone. I'd rather have a big screen so that I can see. And then also with the phone bank, you're supposed to have your phone and your laptop.
Yes.
I spent 40 minutes on the last phone bank attempt trying to figure out the technology, and I ended up, you know, leaving without making one single call. And I put in the chat multiple times, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? And just because there's so many people, I got lost in the
Well,
shuffle.
I apologize because we normally have several co-leads on the call, and one of them will usually take you into a breakout room. Now, we did have an
They
issue.
did have breakout rooms, but I was not assigned to a breakout room.
Well, I apologize that we didn't see that. Please come back and we can do better. We can do better this coming week.
But can you tell me why I can't access from my, I mean, is it supposed to be accessed, that link that we get in our text? Is that supposed to be accessed if we type it into the search bar on our laptop?
So you should get an email as well. There should be an email that comes to you as well. It may be in your junk folder if you look for it, that has the Zoom link for you to log on to the Zoom for either this call or for the phone bank.
So is the email Zoom link different than the one that's in the text message?
No, it's the same.
Okay, so it doesn't work. What am
Well,
I,
there,
what am I doing wrong?
You know what? We probably need to have you, connect with you with technical stuff. If you could maybe email us and we can work it out. We can work it out that way.
Okay, can you give me the email address?
So, how about general at indivisibleill.com.
General at
indivisibleill.com.
I have to write slowly.
Okay. Anyway, but while you're doing that, Georgianne, you had a question?
Actually, I had, I guess, a comment, but I think I also had a problem using the link. And what happened, what I figured out was that that the O was a zero.
Oh.
That there was what I thought was an O didn't work. So I changed it to a zero and it did work. But it wasn't the other trick I have is that I'll copy a text and email it to myself.
I was just
and then
gonna
I can
say
access
then you don't have to type it.
I don't have to type it, and then the email's right there and I can find it. Because I also have often the problem that I note in my calendar when I signed up for something and who the confirmation email comes from. So I can find it, date and source. But sometimes even that I can't find it. So I just email it to myself and then there it is and I can click on it. What I was going to say though, I absolutely am flabbergasted that Patrick is offering to share the granular data with us after a Canvas turf, because I've been asking for that for years and the Dems will not do it. And I say I want to own my turfs because I've wanted to do this for years, that I go back to the same place. And what I do, I certainly do my own neighborhood, is every time there's anything that would benefit people in the neighborhood that I figure they don't know about, I'll go around and knock on doors on an afternoon or an evening, and I'll just say, have you heard about this thing? And even if they have, it's an entree. And so in my neighborhood, everybody knows me, even though I am not the elected Democratic committee member yet. But I will be very soon. But I believe that when you go to a door, you have to have something to offer. And you offer what you've got to offer, and then you can say, you know, you're really friendly and outgoing, and how would you like to help? And the easiest entree is postcarding. I think it's really important that there's a postcard group in every town. I run mine at my public library one night a month, and I have met so many people, and they have brought so many friends. Now, we don't have 35 people who show up at the library. We usually have 6 to 10, but there's another 15 that come to my house and pick up packets of postcards. I got rid of 1,400 postcards in 1 week.
Wow.
when the campaign was really important. There's so many things we can do to get our fellow citizens involved. So I just want to encourage everybody. I missed the whole first half. I came to learn how to be a neighborhood canvas captain, and I guess I missed it all because we haven't talked about that.
You know what? This is being recorded. This is being recorded.
Yeah, I'll look at the recording when it comes. But I do want to encourage everybody that this is a real opportunity to get to know your community.
Yeah.
So thank you, Patrick.
And we'll be doing more trainings as well. So we'll send out the recording, and this is just the first conversation of many as well.
I've
and
never
we're going to
seen
send out a survey
captain
after this as well.
training before. That's great.
And you may have helped Mary with her issues too. And by the way, I hate postcarding. That's the last thing I ever wanted to do.
I
And
never
everybody
write
else
one myself. I just hand them to other people to write. For some reason,
everybody else loves it, but I do not.
No, I don't do it either. I just organize the group.
Yeah. Yes, you rock. You rock. So.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
All right. Are there any other questions that anyone has? If not, I want to thank you all for joining. We will follow up shortly with everyone. And you all are actually going to get an email from us momentarily about the Big Ugly Bill panel that is going to be on the 21st. So be on the lookout for that. You'll get that before 9 o'clock tonight. All right, everyone, take care, and we'll talk soon.
You're right,
Good, everyone.